Helldivers 2 targets super credit cheaters with radically improved tools, but not everyone's on board with Arrowhead's announcement. That's the headline GamesRadar ran with as they ran their piece outlining Arrowhead's announcement made this morning in the official HD2 Discord. Now, there's a lot of feedback flying in from all angles within the Helldivers community. I mean, just some examples here: super credit cheaters and what's going on there, fears of bans, and players just throwing up their middle finger at Corpo lingo. Those were just some of the discussions we saw hitting Reddit and the Discord following this announcement. What's actually happened and how does it affect you? Well, let's find out. If you want to help support the channel, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my future upload alerts. Also, if you're on mobile, you can swipe to hype the video, and for a topic like this, it's important to get this video out in front of as many eyes as possible. So again, if you can help the cause and swipe to hype the video, I'd really appreciate it. And so, let's dive on in and find out what's going on with all the latest inside Helldivers. A win for the community or for Arrowhead is how GamesRadar went on to finish up their headline. And so, let's go ahead and check out the rest of what they had to say. Arrowhead Game Studios is cracking down on Helldivers 2 players who use cheats to get rich quick and farm super credits illegitimately, but the developer's announcement doesn't have everyone on their side of the Galactic War table. You've told us that cheaters and exploiters ruin the experience, that it feels unfair when someone games the super credit system while you're out there earning yours the hard way, the developer writes in a recent transmission posted to the game's Discord channel. We heard you, and we're starting to implement changes that will tackle issues like this. Today we're improving our monitoring methods for suspicious super credit activity. Now, should a grunt extract with a substantially higher number of super credits than the highest earning players ever recorded, Arrowhead has better tools to detect and stop them in their tracks. This will not affect legitimate players, only the bad apples cheating the system, the dev assures. If you're playing the game, grinding maps, clearing POIs, looting bunkers, you will never experience any change. The steps exist to catch bad actors, not to slow you down. Cheaters, botters, people using automation and duplication exploits to hoover up super credits at rates no human Helldiver could ever reach legitimately are being targeted by the studio's improved detection tools. However, Arrowhead says its new system will stop them at the source before they can do damage to the economy you play in. This is a win for the community. A healthier economy means the super credits you earn through honest service to Super Earth stay worth earning. The message ends off, "You told us the fight wasn't fair. Today marks a big step towards eradicating pesky cheaters." While Arrowhead isn't wrong for implementing measures against cheaters, some players in the community have taken issue with the company framing its announcement as a win for anyone other than Arrowhead, Sony, and both companies' wallets. You see, Helldivers 2 doesn't have a player-affected economy. It's not an MMO, it's not even a competitive shooter, and super credits are only used to buy in-game packs that don't expire. But here's where the article takes a turn and gets just a little bit spicy as they grab some of these community posts. Quote, "Nothing but Corpo words, LMAO. It's the economy that they created," one player writes online, going on to say they prefer focusing on banning cheaters instead of giving actual decent ways to get SC. Another puts it eloquently. Preventing SC cheating was inevitable, but this really could have and should have been done better. By buffing SC gains on higher difficulties, for example, or literally anything instead of pretending like this is some huge community-driven update when it's literally the definition of a money-driven decision. Again, it's Arrowhead's right to protect its business interests, of course, but penalizing cheaters without addressing why people use super credit exploits in the first place, grinding for super credits as torture, has rubbed some folks the wrong way. For reference, I'll drop a link to the official statement made this morning in as many forms as I can find down in the video description and pinned comment. I really encourage you to go check it out on your own. Read it several times, word for word, but overall, I think it really boils down to three main areas. You've got the TLDR, what it changes, and finally, who does it affect? Now, for the 30,000-foot overview, it says that if you earn credits at an unreasonably high rate, going on to specify substantially higher than the highest player's earnings ever recorded, there are now steps in place to counter this. They also say this will not affect legitimate players, only the bad apples cheating the system. Don't worry. We'll get into the details in just a moment on all of this, including statements made by Arrowhead after they posted this announcement and we started seeing some of the community fallout. Moving along, and the section about changes basically says that if you're hitting your missions, looting the POIs and bunkers, and doing your thing legit, this change will not have any effect on you. And finally, and probably most importantly, who is going to be caught up in the changes? Well, Arrowhead spells that out as well, saying it's going to be the cheaters, botters, and people using automation and duplication exploits to snag those SCs at inhuman rates. Going on to say that it levels the playing field and will be implemented across all currencies, including metals, samples, and requisition, which I didn't know was a thing. Really? Well, maybe yeah, it is. The sample thing, because we've heard of hackers using dupe exploits to cheese those major orders, but metals and requisition as well? That's kind of interesting. And then they've got a link to player support in case you feel you were wrongly flagged, and interesting. I just noticed that the Steam post now has 664 comments and not a single upvote. Were they disabled? Question mark. Anyways, on to what we know with the answers we got from the community team this morning. So, the first question, and probably the big question on everyone's mind, is will I get banned? Will I get banned if someone was in my party last week, 2 months ago, 2 years ago? You know, how is this thing going to work? Well, 𝗵𝐺𝐵 said this morning when responding to a Discord member with that very question. Here's what he said. You won't get outright banned, and if you feel like your account has been affected, you can contact support. Mitch also went on to say that the changes are being rolled out to combat the hacker dissidents. Arrowhead CEO Sham Georgiani was also in chat and answering questions this morning, going on to say that Arrowhead currently doesn't have a way to ban players. Georgiani also went on to say that since they didn't implement the PSN account linking, they don't have the ability to ban, although they're working on ways to solve it down the line. So, we're hearing it from the comms manager and the CEO himself, no bans. Although we didn't know much of how the system worked from the official post, it looks like Georgiani did go on to give out a few details or two, saying that this will only impact cheaters that extract with a bajillion credits. I don't remember the limit, but it's nowhere near what a regular diver would be able to farm in 24 hours. Again, there's a mention of a limit and some sort of time frame that will apparently be so high even John Helldiver himself couldn't reach it without a little computer hacker help. All right, I'm probably going to get flamed for my thoughts and feedback because it's either going to be too soft or too hard. And man, there's some pretty bad jokes in there. But let me start off with my initial thoughts once I read this morning's post. And just off the top of my head, here's what I initially thought. Okay, next. And I say that with all due respect, but seriously, and to quote their post, who's out here in the community asking for a cleaner fight? Now, I know some players read that title and thought maybe Arrowhead was about to revamp the super credit system so that higher difficulties maybe got something like, I don't know, better chances to find credits, or maybe the chances to find higher than 10 credit bundles were increased the more you increase the difficulty above trivial, which is where credit farms are found to be most efficient. I also know that some players saw that mention of the Galactic War and instantly their antenna went up thinking that the damned Galactic War modifier was going bye-bye, but in reality, it's none of that. Now, I honestly don't know how much their support team receives feedback about cheaters, but you know, I've been with this game ever since launch back in 2024, and maybe, and I mean, I'd really have to think back on it, I've maybe seen bad faith actors in my party 5 times, maybe 4, and most of those were just asshats that were going around team killing for sport. Of course, we've got the post coming in from both sides. Way too late, Arrowhead. Are we dead ass? It's over. And of course, they are prioritizing this over anything else. And listen, I get it, because I mostly agree with it. Of all the things we could have rolled out, this was the last thing on players' minds. Balancing weak spawns, performance, player progression, customization, a new patch update. Hell, how about the next Warbond? Or for the love of God, can we please just revert the f***ing Hellpod steering and bouncing strap balls? No, we get this. So first and probably most important is timing, and the timing here was just absolutely incorrect. For many players, a needed overhaul to super credit farming takes far more priority over this niche credit limit hacker prevention announcement. Now, I'm just going to throw around some numbers here, so none of this is confirmed. Don't take any of this as gospel, but if I'd have to guess, for the wild majority of players, something like 98 or 99% of the players worldwide, none of this announcement matters. Outside of there, you've got the people who do it just to give Arrowhead the middle finger, and then you've got the dedicated, turned it into a side hustle hackers who sell boosted accounts and for a fee will jump into lobbies and pump out super credits for you to pick up. I guess there's some bragging rights here when you post your screenshots. You've got 63.5 million creditos, which I guess is awesome, assuming that Arrowhead pushes out another 63,521 war bonds, which I hope the hell never happens. But you know, I don't know. I feel like with so many pieces of low-hanging fruit Arrowhead could have made a play for, bouncing strat balls, hell pod steering, juicing up the spawn rates, and you know, the list goes on and on. Why are we dropping this announcement right now? Plus, if we're coming up with credit limits and things like that, what does it say about how effective GameGuard is? That would have been a pretty banging announcement if they had instead said, we're now moving over to EAC alongside whatever we saw earlier today. Listen, man, if you're out there doing your crazy private lobby stuff because you want to stick it to big Corpo, I'm not going to stop you. And Arrowhead deserves a swift kick in the ass from time to time, which, by the way, they do get here on this channel. But overall, the timing on this one, along with the wording, which, by the way, scared the hell out of some within the player base who thought the law was coming for them, while for others, they read it and it just gave them more ammo to point back at the game. I've got to say, overall, this whole thing earlier today just wasn't well executed. Let's just say that if I were sitting over in the offices right now at Arrowhead and they put up on their top 10 list on the whiteboard and at the top it says, hey, today we're going to install a super credit limiter to stop those 1%ers out there with their hacks, and then look to me for my thoughts and said, hey, what do you think, Buzz? I would have taken that pen and written down 20 other things that players would much rather see change with the game and tell them to start on those. Know what I mean? But who knows? Maybe I'm just too narrowly focused. Maybe I'm looking at this announcement and reading way too much into it. In many regards, I see something like today's post, much like I look back and see, say, the last 5 months of durable damage armor buff madness we just went through, which only brings us mostly back to where we started. What does it do? How does it help? And how long will it take? Are the motivations of the day with Helldivers? And at least from what I'm seeing in that post, it does very little of any of it. Now, if I'm way off base, I'm sure you'll let me know. So keep those comments and feedback coming. If you happen to like the video, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell. If you're on mobile, swipe the hype the video. And as always, a massive shout out goes out to all of our hardcore channel members. Until the next one, this is 𝐷𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 signing off.